watching Property TV.
Hello and welcome to Property Question Time. My name's Stephen Galpin and this is the programme where you can have your property related questions answered by our team of property experts. And very interesting show today. I've got Richard Murray, CEO of Eurolink Software, come back to join us, I think for the second time.
It is, yeah.
Welcome back, Richard.
Thanks,
good to see you.
Thank you.
And somebody who hasn't done Question Time before, Stephen Smith. Now, Stephen, you were founder of Poundland, I think. Sold out for, I've no doubt, an enormous fortune, and created or invested in a company called Greenfield Mortgages, which is doing a very good job in the mortgage market. Very good to have you here. First time, we'll be gentle with you, don't worry.
Okay.
So we're looking forward to hearing some of your answers and exploring your expertise. So we'll get straight on, and Richard, I'm going to go with you first. With so many agents in the property world changing to online only, do the panel think this trend will continue, or do they feel that traditional agency practices will prevail in the longer term?
So I differentiate by saying you're either a full service agent or an online agent. So that's how I differentiate between the two. It's a big market. There's 19,500 agents in a £12.4 billion industry. It's a top 100 sector. So what that says to me is there'll always be a requirement for different types of services. So I genuinely think there's a place for the onliners. The bit that I struggle with is how can they look after their vendors as well as a full service agent. I think they're always going to be up against it. I personally think. Is 63% of people who inquire about a property don't buy that property. They buy a property that was introduced to them by the agent. Now, again, there's nothing to say an onliner couldn't do that, but are they at the viewing? Is the viewing a vendor only? Is it being done by an outsourced agency? You know, is there an incentive for that viewer to talk about the rest of the stock? That would be something that I would say would be difficult. So if you're a full service agent completing the viewing, I think then you've got the rest of the stock in your mind, in your pocket, on your device, to be able to show that person if for whatever reason the property they inquired about is not necessarily ticking all their boxes. Do you
think that the online sort of discipline is really geared to a particular niche within the market? So either at the bottom, middle or top. I mean, I'm just thinking, I used to work in the West End of London. I mean, there, you know, sort of £3-5 million properties commonplace. But I also remember a lot of those owners would run a mile rather than show anybody around their property to sell it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which
they wouldn't ever want to get involved.
No, they just don't want to get involved. I mean, they wouldn't even want to sort of get involved in the negotiations, really. No. They just give a figure and say, there we are.
Yeah.
So do you think there is a sort of niche aspect to this?
I just think there'll be a requirement for it. There's I don't know what part of the market. I think it depends on the vendor. I actually genuinely think it depends on the vendor. I don't know. Let's take the average house price in the UK at the moment, or I think it was in March, was £278,000 average price. So what's an agency fee? 1%, so £2,780. Generally plus VAT. They usually get you with the plus VAT.
Yes.
So that's your maths is going to be better than mine, Steve. £3,336. So that's the fee for the average house in the UK with a full service agent at 1% plus VAT. If an online is charging, let's say £1,000, which seems to be the price point, I think it's creeping up, by the way, but that seems to be the price point. So you're saving £2,336, yes. which actually it's a lot of money. It's a good saving.
Yeah.
The problem that I have, and the bit that I don't understand about the business model, is a full service agent will typically get you around 5% on average more than an online agent. So on that basis, you're effectively saying, well, I want to save £2,336. at the same time as giving up £13,900 worth of additional sales proceeds. So if I'm doing it and I'm selling my house and I live in the 2 up, 2 down average house in the UK, I've got to compare a £2,336 saving with a loss of sales revenue of sales proceeds, of 13,900. I can't get around those numbers.
Especially if you've got a few people looking to buy their house and negotiating against each other.
Yeah, I
Well, see, online there is no negotiation, is there really? You know,
price is the price, really.
Yes, price.
It's an inquiry. So I think they're the statistics. It's does it have a place? And I think I go back to my original point. There'll always be someone who maybe you talked about ego-driven purchases. What about the ego-driven sale? What about the person who thinks they can do the better job than the estate agent? Let's face it, estate agents are the second or third least liked profession in the country.
It does happen. I mean, my pet hate is, you know, you get a young 17 or 18-year-old boy and bringing somebody into your house, and he sort of stands there twanging his braces, saying, "Well, you know, if you take my advice," and you're thinking, you know, are you old enough to buy a property yet? Never mind about sell it. And then the other extreme is the agent that doesn't bother, because my theory is always that, you know, in the good times, all you need is an order taker. In the bad times, you need a good agent. Yeah. But right the way through, I can't believe the laziness of some agents. They come round to your house, you know, they boldly walk in your front door, they open a door and say, of course, this is the bedroom. Oh, no, sorry, I mean bathroom. You know, why? Because they haven't been and, you know, looked at the property beforehand. They haven't done their homework. It's just a process. So I think there's a lot of professional need in the agency business, and my view is it should have some compulsory training at some point in time.
I would agree, but the better, and again, I would never knock estate agents, letting agents. I mean, they're our clients. They're our clients, and I would say if you go to a good estate agent and look what's happening behind that negotiator, albeit he might be young or she might be young. If they've got really good back office infrastructure and services and technology behind them, that is what I think the consumer doesn't see. A lot of the compliance and the hard work that goes in to estate agency behind the scenes. And they should promote that more. The
favourite criticism, isn't it? Oh, what have you done for your fee? All you've done is walk around my house. You know, they forget the cost of the portals, the training in-house, you know, that sort of thing. But anyway, there we are. All right, well, thank you for that answer, Richard. Bit complicated. I'm not sure how clear I am on what you're saying there in terms of the benefits or otherwise, but I think in the main, I think what you're saying is that it's a balanced part of the business, and it'll remain as such, won't it? Really?
Or to put it simply, do you want to save money on the fees, or do you want a higher sale price for your property?
Yeah.
To put it simply.
Yeah, I go with you. Yeah. Okay, Steve, your first question. So we'll try and go relatively easy on you. Could the panel please explain when it is useful to use bridging finance rather than normal mortgage facilities when starting up with a new portfolio of buy-to-let properties? Pros and cons, please. Now, Steve, I should explain. This question came out of quite a long letter that we had.
Yes.
And the further clarification of that was, it seemed to be that his bank was saying, look, you want to start a portfolio, take a bridging loan, and later we'll turn it into permanent finance.
Okay.
Now, I think his query was effectively that really meant 2 lots of fees.
Okay.
And I think he wondered whether he was just being, pushed into a fee cycle rather than getting good and proper advice. So as a very practical man, experienced investor, let's hear what you've got to say.
Okay, well, a bridging loan is, when you talk about, a lot of people don't know what a bridging loan is. A bridging loan is a short-term loan that is available to different customers for different reasons. So, for example, somebody would use a bridging loan for if they was going to an auction to bid on a property, and very quickly, these auctions spring up all the time, and very quickly you need to be able to go to the auction with finance in place to be able to put your hand up and do the deal. So a bridging loan is used for auction finance, and also a bridging loan is used for, I'll give you an example. If a buy-to-let property is all done, kitchen's in, bathrooms in, it's ready to rent, then a normal mortgage is the right way to go.
Right.
If you're buying property and looking, as we do, or my daughter, we buy property that needs a bit of work too. Maybe we can upgrade the bathrooms, maybe we're going to put kitchens in, maybe we're going to put a little extension on the side. Then a lot of these properties don't qualify for a normal mortgage and will be very difficult to get in. Depends on what your financial advisor or broker is telling you. So what we do, we provide. I've sold Poundland, and with the money, we use the money ourselves to be able to buy these short-term loans. And people take a typical short bridging loan or short-term loan is 12 months. And within those 12 months, it gives the property developer time to do this work, to get to finish all the works that need requiring.
Yeah.
Some brokers have a penalty if you don't get finished within 12 months. We don't charge penalties. And because the property now is completed, you bring an agent in who value the property, and because the property now is worth a lot more money, when you go to a mortgage company, you can get a lot more money out of the property. Some people do 90-95% loan to value. When you put your mortgage up. So the property, they can get money out of it, a lot more money.
Yeah.
And it's because it's a short-term loan, you can, as soon as you're ready, you can.
So actually, those extra fees would give you quite a lot of financial freedom, wouldn't they? Really, in terms of
Yes.
Taking the pressure away of getting something done in a very short space of time, or taking a risk of not being able to fund the property in total, I suppose.
That's correct. So the short-term loan helps while they do the work on the property. It is more expensive than a normal mortgage. But obviously, if you've got, typically somebody recently bought a property for about 105,000, did the work, found the property was worth 180,000. In fact, not only did they take all their money out,
a bit more besides.
it gives them more money to then spend on the next property, on their next property.
Yeah. Okay, get it. Steve, that's a very good answer. Thank you very much for that insight into bridging finance and, of course, longer term finance. Now, that's all we've got time for in this half of the show, so join me again after the break when we'll be asking Steve and Richard more of your questions.
You are watching Property TV. You are watching Property TV.
Hello and welcome back to part 2 of Property Question Time with Richard Murray and Steve Smith. Welcome back, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll move on with the questions. So, Richard, I have a small agency practice dealing with both rental and sales. I'm sorry to say we're not the most tech-savvy business around, but are beginning to feel that we are losing out as we're not as efficient as some of our competitors. Can the panel advise on how we may take modest steps towards a more up-to-date business control and management process without totally disrupting our current day-to-day business? I'm sure you've had this one before.
Yeah, a lot. I think without doubt, technology can help an agency, big or small, to be more efficient, to be more compliant, to offer a better service. And I think that's that's the key. What are the objectives of this small, not so tech savvy business? I would imagine they will work very much on the relationship side of things. They'll make sure that relationships are key and their communication is very clear, probably dialogue via the phone, one-to-one. So I think what would be important is to make sure that agency understands that technology is not there to take away from that part of what they do really well, most probably.
Or put a wall in between them and the customer, really.
100%. What it's there to do is to give them, ideally, more time to be able to work on those relationships and make sure that they are getting the instructions and getting the business that's what they're there for, to do deals, to get instructions and to sell and to let properties in this example. So I would say I would say it's crucial these days, particularly on the letting side, to have good systems, good software systems that are protecting you, ultimately protecting the shareholders and the directors of the business, because compliance is not going anywhere other than.
Well, I mean, a good system will guide you towards compliance, won't it?
Always. It will make you add dates. It will remind you of things. It will automate various reports and instructions to suppliers. It's obviously as ever. It's only as good as the data that is put in. So it's again important that it's rolled out well, it's trained out well, that the data entry is as good and as accurate. Now, as technology companies, we can help with that. We can pull data in from external sources, self-service, for example, allowing people to put their own details in. If the three of us are putting our own information in, it's more likely to be correct than if a third party is doing it on our behalf across the phone. So I would encourage that agent to very much look at their options for technology to help them be better at what they do best. I think the biggest challenge, and I think the main part of your question, is the disruption to the BAU, business as usual, as we refer to a lot in the software world, and particularly when we're talking about implementation projects. And I would advise a small agency to focus primarily on, let's say their procurement process is done. They've picked the right supplier for them, really important. Yeah. I would then say, right, we're not in a rush here to implement this. We're going to do it right. We're going to invest the money now and then the time. So I would say the best piece of advice I could give is look at your calendar, look at your trends, and say, when have I got the most time? That could be Christmas, New Year, January. Yeah. And even if you've made the decision in March, April, wait, book it in with your software house. They'll be very happy with that, because then we can forecast, we can get our project resource in place and together and ready. But that would be my best piece of advice. Pick the right time and then invest as much of that time as you can, which will disrupt your business less.
So better customer service and able to help the agent grow his business.
It really will. I mean, if an agent wants to scale, then this day and age they need to use technology.
Richard, how are these things costed? So let's put ourselves in the position of this non-digital agency at this moment. What does he have to think about in terms of costs? Is it many thousands of pounds up front? Is it a monthly commitment? Is it a quarterly commitment? How does it work?
Different companies work on different bases. Some charge per office, some charge per head, per seat, that sort of model. Little bit outdated, to be honest, those types of models. It's more of a subscription service now. So it's much better for the smaller agency. They can buy into a subscription model. There'll be an initial term, because remember, the software house has to invest in the implementation. The support element is far greater in the early weeks and months of a new software. So to look at both sides of it, which obviously I can, it's, there's going to be an initial term, but it's a subscription-based model, Stephen. And the way we do things is slightly different. We do it on the size of the portfolio, not just the portfolio, the active portfolio. So you're actually only ever paying a subscription for those properties where you either can or are making a fee. Yeah. Now, that's just our approach. I'm not saying it's the best, I'm not saying it's right, but when we're pitching against a company who are charging per seat, well, I would say their business model is to provide a less efficient software because they make more money. Whereas we try to come at it from a slightly different angle and say, well, look, if you're only ever paying for your active portfolio, then you can actually grow, and you could actually take a step back as well if if that was the case.
I think that's a very sensible approach. I mean, I can remember years ago working for a firm of quite famous chartered surveyors, and I mean we used to have a sort of a cost initiative thrust on us, where if you got a terminal on your desk, you were billed per annum for that terminal and all the things that went with it. Now, if you've got 4 terminals or 5 terminals in your little department, and somebody was off, well, that's your problem. You're still going to be paying for the terminal.
Absolutely,
even if it's just totally dead and non-income producing.
And that's how it was. And that was the technology at the time, and there was an investment in the installation of all of those terminals. We were just going via a URL and just jumping on and logging on with our Google or Facebook ID. There was I always see it obviously from the other side as well, and I think there was a cost to the software houses for that. But those days are long gone.
But the reason I ask the question is because, if you're not into software, if you don't understand how it works, how it's charged for, how it's created, then the thought of the cost can be quite daunting or a bit frightening, and often is the case. Well, how do you know before you're in too deep? Really, I suppose that's the question.
And I would say go to the trade exhibitions, go to the
that's
trade
a
shows,
good
look at
idea.
Property Mark and the Arla conference at Excel. We're all there.
Yeah.
You can talk to all of us. You can spend the day there doing all the research you want, so you can get an idea on price point. Is the software right for our small agency?
Yeah.
Because some softwares won't be right for that. It'll be a total overkill.
And it's exciting if you get the right software. I mean, there's no way I would have been able to grow Poundland without software.
Yeah.
Okay, great answer. Thank you very much for that, Richard. Good insight there. Steve, right, here's an interesting one. What do the panel think of the government's latest suggestion of 50-year pass-down mortgages?
That's a tough one. The government haven't really, although they've briefly said about this 50-year, they haven't really said about how it will work, for example.
Have they even asked anybody that gives them yet?
There's no fixed, what will the fixed interest be is if it's 50 years and this is going to be passing over to your children, because the average person nowadays is 30 plus taking their first mortgage. Right. So you're going to be 80 odd by the time you pay this mortgage off. So is any inheritance tax going to be passed on to the children if they take over this loan? The other thing is this might help people like, for example, a teacher working in a high value area, maybe because it's a bit cheaper now because they're paying over the mortgage for 50 years, maybe that person will help them buy a property. Yes, it will certainly be cheaper, the monthly costs per month, but I don't know, I've got mixed feelings about it really. It's almost like an interest only mortgage.
Yeah, it feels like that way.
Well, look. I mean, my view on this. You're the expert, Steve. But I've got two thoughts here. I think interest-only mortgages have their worth, especially when you're at the beginning of your house owning exercise, because inflation will take the value of your property up. Yeah. And it will give you some extra equity. Yeah. And so it's inconsequential how little capital you repay in those early days. I just don't think it matters or it don't count. It might count when you're much later in life and you're thinking, well, where is my equity and what is it? And I think with these 50-year mortgages, I think like a lot of things this government do, they love the soundbite, don't they, of saying, oh, this is what we'll do, this will solve it. Yeah. I don't think they've consulted with lenders because, let me just give you one scenario. So you say, let's say you're at midlife and you take on a 50-year mortgage to pass down to your children. Yeah. Now, that's assuming your children want it passed down.
And probably, hopefully by this time, the children have hopefully got their own property on the property ladder. The only thing I do see, if I'm to be perfectly honest, it does allow you to buy a more expensive property, and if the equity of the property increases, then when you do come retire, maybe you've got an house with more equity in. But a 50-year-old mortgage, 60, 65, you are retiring, and the kids left home. Yeah. So you are going to look at downsizing.
Element at the side.
So, and are you going to have to specify who you're going to pass it down to? That's the critical thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and how will that work? And I think the government needs more time speaking to the right people before they just willy-nilly put these things out. And I think they'll just do it just to see what people's reactions are.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the government should be involved at all. I think I'd let the market forces take the power. Don't you? Anyway, all right. Well, look, we've come to the end of the show. So a huge thank you to Richard Murray and, of course, Steve Smith. Thank you, Steve. I hope it wasn't too painful for you. Thank you both very much for your answers. Very comprehensive, very helpful. I'm Stephen Galpin. Join me again next time on Property Question Time when we'll be asking more of your questions.